Because once you start down this path to Alzheimer's, you're starting the beginning of your journey and there's no coming back. Nobody can pull you back. There's no cure. There's nothing that can prevent it. There's nothing that can really slow it down.
We do spend $600 million on Alzheimer's, and there are other diseases that continue to get sizable sums more.
You're starting on that path, and I describe it as walking over the bridge. And when you're on this side of the bridge, it's the challenging times. It's the crazy arguments that don't make sense because their reasoning isn't logical. It's the, you can't drive anymore, or I need to manage your medication now. And as you continue to walk over that bridge, it is extremely difficult to see them leaving you month by month. Another piece of them is leaving you.
I am 100% committed to increasing the research that goes into Alzheimer's.
And it's a tough journey. It's a really tough journey with their agitation, repetitive questions, a variety of behaviors, hallucinations, all the horrors that are this disease. But my husband's now on the other side of the bridge. And I guess, having had to accept this, there's some joy in that, I guess. He's happy. He lives in the moment. His days are full of happy moments. He doesn't think ahead. He doesn't need to worry about anything. He's just happy in the moment because in our very fortunate situation, he has love around him all the time. He's socially engaged and stimulated. And so cumulatively, the minutes of his days are happy. He doesn't know what he's done, except the day has been happy.
But we need to do this research. This basic research at the National Institutes of Health is absolutely critical.
Not everybody in life has true love, I think, in their relationships. We were very fortunate in that we really had true love, and we had a great marriage. We had a very good marriage. Marriage is not always easy, but we had a very good marriage. We renovated a lot of houses together. We put in a lot of insulation together. I've run a lot of wire with him. One day he said, "Brenda, I really want to get married. Let's get married. Will you marry me?" And I sat him down and I said, "Explain to me why." And he said, "Because I want to build a life with somebody. I want to be married to somebody for a long time, and 25 or 30 years from now, I want to sit on a beach someday with that person, and I want to reminisce and talk about the beautiful life we've built, shared memories we have, experiences with our family." The irony now is that we have been married for 25 or 30 years, and we did have a beautiful life together. And we have so many wonderful memories that I think about so frequently, but I'm the only one with the memories. He doesn't remember anymore, so when I go to the beach, they're memories that I can't share with him. They're just with me. They're no longer with him. He was a true Renaissance man. There wasn't anything in life he didn't love. He was a glass more than half full kind of guy. Ken's dad only went to 3rd grade. They didn't have a lot of money, so his mom opened up a corner store in their house. So Ken started stocking shelves from the time he could walk. He was a really bright kid. When he graduated from high school, the superintendent of his school said, "I think I can get you a scholarship at Tufts University." So Ken got a full boat scholarship to Tufts University. From there, he got a scholarship to go to Yale and was accepted into their PhD program. He stayed and got his master's in civil engineering. He went to work for Raytheon for a while and then started teaching math at a college outside of Boston while he went to law school. From there, he became a lawyer. He was a trial lawyer who did product liability because of his technical background. He loved his garden. He grew the best tomatoes around. He loved fishing. He loved to ski. He was just a beautiful skier. He loved to go out in his tractor in the woods, get the wood ready for winter to heat with. At the same time, he would write computer programs. He loved to read. He was a woodworker. He had a woodworking shop and making benches and all sorts of other things. So he had a passion for life.
What you are seeing is many leading researchers leaving the United States of America. They can't get the grants they need to do their work. So I believe in prevention. I believe that it makes sense to invest in trying to understand the causation of disease. In the long run, it saves us money, and it certainly eases human suffering.
In the beginning, it requires so much patience because there are so many repetitive questions. And to be asked the same question over and over and over again, it's really tiring. At the same time, the person with the disease, how horrible. How horrible to not realize that you can't remember anything and ask the same question over and over and over again. There's a progression to the disease, and it starts out maybe with repetitive questions, and fast forward a period of time, and my husband wasn't able to self-direct anymore, or he wasn't able to safely go out on the lawnmower anymore, or do things by himself, or go in his garden and know what needed to be done. I know my husband will have a moment of lucidity, and it might just be seconds, 30 seconds, but in that moment, he knows something's wrong, and he knows that there's something wrong here. That's what he'll do. He'll say, he'll do this, because he knows something's not right there. How horrible. No human being should have to suffer that. It's a horrifying disease. Not only do I take care of my husband, but my nearly 89-year-old mother lives with me, and she also has Alzheimer's disease. So I met with Ken's neurologist, and I said, tell me why I should place my husband. And he said, because you're taking care of 2 people with Alzheimer's disease, and that's a lot. And he said, eventually your husband's behaviors are going to get to the point where you're just simply not going to be able to take care of him. That was an agonizing decision, and it still haunts me. It still haunts me because my 50-something-year-old peers are not placing their husbands in assisted living locked memory units. I just wasn't prepared for it. I never thought I would place my husband. I thought he would stay home with me because partners aren't supposed to leave each other. But with the support of my family, I went and looked at assisted living communities and tried to do my due diligence, and I found one that was relatively nearby and I thought would be a good fit for Ken. It was and is an agonizing and heart-wrenching decision to make. 2 years later, I have to say I can see that it was the best decision, and I do feel now that I gave my husband a gift because I think he's better where he is now than if he had stayed at home with me. And I do think it was a gift I gave him, and the time I do spend with him, we really, really can enjoy each other.
It's a total top priority for me. I have so many friends whose family is devastated by Alzheimer's, so it's a total priority.
In the beginning, he would walk around looking for me. Where's Brenda? Where's Brenda? And he'd get up in the middle of the night. I guess it's a common thing. He'd go looking for me because we'd been together for almost 30 years. And then he started asking people, why am I here? Does Brenda not love me anymore? Did she leave me here? Does she not love me anymore? And they'd say, yes, of course she loves you. I was telling one of my friends about this, and she said to me, remember the buttons we used to make for our children? She said, why don't we make some buttons for Ken that says, Brenda loves you? So she went out to our local craft store and came by the next day with all of these buttons with my photograph on them. Typed over it was, Brenda loves you. We brought the buttons in, and when Ken would say, why am I here? Does Brenda not love me anymore? People would point to the buttons, and as soon as he saw the buttons with my picture on it, he would have a sigh of relief. He was so relieved. He saw my picture, and he saw the words, Brenda loves Ken. It was such relief. Every morning, they would pin the button to his shirt, and when he would ask many, many times during the day, does Brenda not love me? They'd point to the button and say, yes, she does, of course she does. And he'd look down and he'd put his hand over his chest and know that I was with him. We had a great partnership in our marriage, and he was just the marrying kind of guy. He liked being married. He was really happy in marriage. And after he'd been at the assisted living community for a couple of weeks, the director called me, and she asked me to come in, and I couldn't come in that day because I had another commitment. And she said, well, I really don't want to tell you this over the phone, but your husband's involved with another woman here. And I guess my reaction wasn't what she thought it would be, because 2 months before Ken went into assisted living, randomly an article came in through my email, and the article was entitled, "Did This Man Die of a Broken Heart?" And it was about this gentleman who'd been placed in assisted memory unit, and he and another woman whose husband had passed got involved with each other. So the administration went to the man's family and said, "Is this okay with you?" And they said yes. They went to the woman's family and they said, "No, it's not okay with us. You need to move him." And they moved the man to another locked wing, and they didn't see each other again. And the article went on to say that within a week the man passed, and so the question was, did he die from a broken heart? And I had read that article 2 months before, and I'd thought about it a lot, and I thought, well, I can understand how that would happen. So when they called me, it was almost like I was prepared for it, and it didn't bother me, because Ken and I were in a partnership, and he was used to that companionship. And the woman that he became involved with, who he thinks he's married to, she also was in a long-term marriage, and her husband had passed. So they came together. They think that they're married, and they're great companions to one another. Their life is better because they have each other. But that's part of the horror of this disease. If I had told Ken 10 years ago that he would be living in an assisted living, thinking he was married to somebody else, that would have been unfathomable to him. And for me, it's just more of this journey, more of this disease, more of the anticipatory grief. Every day grief is looming. You can't really attach to it because the person is still here. But it's another loss. Our marriage, it's frozen in time 10 years ago. Our marriage froze in time 10 years ago. And it's morphed into something else now. Our love is so strong. He sees me, and sometimes he thinks I'm his mother, and sometimes he thinks I'm his wife. But he knows there's a strong emotional attachment. And the love we feel now is really a stronger love, I think, than earlier in our marriage, because of what we've experienced, even though, I don't know, I can't explain it. I guess I won't let this disease take away the beauty of his life. And I just don't want it to be for nothing. So in talking to his doctor, we were able to get his family into a research study. He had his mother and 7 aunts and uncles who all purportedly had Alzheimer's disease, 2 older brothers who have passed from Alzheimer's disease, and now here Ken has it too. One of his brothers, prior to his passing, we were able to get his blood and his skin to the hospital into the study, and his sister, we were able to get her blood and her skin into the study as well as Ken's, and I'm really hopeful that his family will make a difference. But that took some advocacy on my part to get his family into that study. I feel proud of it, and I feel Ken would be really proud of it too.
I had an aunt that passed away in her 90s that had Alzheimer's for 14 years.
This disease forces you to become an advocate. You need to become your, in my case, my husband's medical advocate, his care advocate, his legal advocate, and I guess now I'm being some sort of a political advocate. I'm advocating politically for this disease to get more attention and ultimately more funding. We're currently spending less than $600 million in research dollars for Alzheimer's disease, while Medicare and Medicaid are spending $153 billion to care for people with Alzheimer's. So the only way to reduce the cost to Medicare and Medicaid is to put more money into research to find a cure for this disease. I find the New Hampshire primary to be very exciting. I think, I feel fortunate to live in the state, first in the nation state. You really can put a question that's significant to you before a potential nominee to one of the parties. And that's pretty amazing. My question is, my name is Brenda Bouchard, and I live in Madbury.
I've been a caregiver for my husband for nearly 10 years. He has younger onset Alzheimer's disease. My mother's almost 89, lives with me. She has Alzheimer's disease too. I'm one of 65,000 Alzheimer's caregivers here in the state of New Hampshire. Alzheimer's disease receives less than $600 million from the NIH for research funding, yet Medicare and Medicaid spend $153 billion a year to take care of people with Alzheimer's. 1 in 5 Medicare dollars is spent on caring for somebody with Alzheimer's disease. The projections are by 2050, thank you, by 2050, projections are by 2050 it's projected that 28 million baby boomers will have Alzheimer's. We need a commitment of $2 billion a year in funding to cure this disease. What we need to do to ensure that this devastating disease is a top priority.
It's a total top priority for me. I have so many.
In 1 minute, you summarized it pretty well. It sounds like a good I'm sorry, your first name is?
Brenda Bouchard.
Brenda?
Yes.
Okay. Brenda touched on a very important issue.
I want you to just think about what she said, 65,000 caregivers right here in one state.
Now more and more people, not only with Alzheimer's, but with early onset dementia and other things, are going to be challenged by that. So clearly we have a leading role when it comes to research and technology to make sure we're at the forefront of that.
The only way we're going to have any sort of solution to this is a Manhattan Project style focus.
If you don't have the federal NIH funding for the cures for diseases, there's no other place to go. You can have great philanthropists, you can have private sector people developing programs, but without that basic research, you're not going to get to where we need to be. So I totally believe that we should be spending more than $600 million, and I appreciate you bringing it up.
You learn so many things in this disease. And at one point I recognized that probably a support group would be a good idea. And Ken is further along in the disease progression than most of the other people in that group. And it is just so difficult for me to be in that group and watch these people all reinvent the wheel. And when a new caregiver spouse comes into this group, I can barely look them in the eyes. I can barely look them in the eyes because I cannot bear to think about what they have to go through because, unfortunately, I know what they don't know. So that is part of the motivation behind my advocacy work here. I'm motivated to get out in front of these presidential candidates because I think I am channeling my own personal pain, anger, and frustration. Watching Ken go through this, seeing his pain, anger, and frustration throughout the course of the disease, my own personal pain, anger, and frustration. But I'm speaking equally because of the pain, anger, and frustration I see in every single member of my support group. And I guess I'm channeling all that pain, anger, and frustration into these questions to these presidential candidates because I don't want to see one more person suffer at the hands of this disease, one more caregiver spouse suffer at the hands of this disease, or another family have to go through what we've gone through. This is so far afield from who I am. I'm not somebody that likes to draw attention to myself or wants to speak in public, and I feel so driven to do this that it's beyond me. It's like the wind is at my back, just propelling me out to advocate for Alzheimer's disease. This is a nonpartisan issue to me. It's not a red issue, it's not a blue issue, it's a purple issue because Alzheimer's is a nonpartisan disease. It's equal opportunity. Anybody can get it. I feel I'm making a difference in my own small way. Alzheimer's disease is a big nut to crack. So I feel like I'm one tiny spoke in this really huge wheel that's trying to move Alzheimer's forward, but every person that I can impact makes a difference. Ken, I'm doing this for you. This isn't who I am, but in our marriage, you learned a lot from me and I learned a lot from you, and this is what I learned from you. And I can't do it as well as you would do it, but I'm doing the best I can for you. And that's another reason that I get out before these presidential candidates is for him. His life, he lived a beautiful life. He lived a fulfilling life. He lived life to its fullest. But this disease took it from him. And this is where I'm lost for words, Kevin. What are the words I'm looking for?